Hi, our next interview is with David Brass, who comes to us as a two-continent bookseller, originally being a bookseller in the UK and now a bookseller in America. And David, just take us back to your upbringing, your childhood, education, family, how you got involved in the book business, etc. Sort of give us a capsule from then to now, if you can.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm David Brass. My great-grandfather was Emmanuel Joseph, known as E. Joseph, and started the family business in 1876 in Holywell Street in the Strand, and moved to the now very well-known 48A Charing Cross Road in 1901. Had two sons, Jack and Sam, and a daughter whose name was Dolly, and she married a bookseller called Ben Marks. And that was another bookshop at 84 Charing Cross Road, Marks & Co. So it was all in the same family. I grew up, I was born in 1947, and at the age of 13, I was told by my parents, you will go and work in the bookshop all the school holidays you have. So from the age of 13, I was sent into the bookshop, and I had to learn to pack books and deliver books and collate books and just be a general dog's body around the bookshop. And then I became interested in music, and that sort of took over for a few years, and I became a professional musician. And that really lasted till I was sort of on and off until I was 21, although at the same time I went and did a sort of an apprenticeship at Quaritch, sort of a part-time thing. I was playing in the band, but I was at Quaritch, having a great time at Quaritch, spending most of my time working under the great John Watson, who was a wonderful tutor, but actually spending most of the time up on the fourth floor with all the secretaries, which was much more fun. But anyway, in around 1968, I decided that I better do something real with my life. And so I thought, well, I'd better concentrate on the rare book business. And I remember going to Paris, being sent there by my grandfather and uncle. Actually, no, just going there for a weekend with my friends. And my grandfather and uncle saying to me, oh, while you're there, go and visit some bookshops. And I went into this bookshop, Rossignol, and told them who I was, and they invited me in the back room, and then the back room, and the back room of the back room, and into the safe and whatever. And they showed me this book, which I recognised, an Ackerman's Microcosm, strange book to find in Paris. Showed me this book, and I thought, this is an amazing copy, this is fantastic. And I remembered that we'd sold one recently for £500. So a lot of money in those days, and I said, this is lovely, great copy, how much is it? And they said £500, the equivalent of £500. I thought, this is so much better than the one we had. This is a wonderful book. Okay, fine, we'll take it. And I went back to London, and grandfather and uncle said to me, did you go into any bookshops? Yes, I went to Rossignol. Did you buy anything? I said, yeah, I bought this Ackerman's Microcosm, you see. Wow, what's it like? I said, oh, it's great. How much did you pay for it? £500. Wow! Right. Really? I said, no, don't worry about it. It's fine. It's great. Anyway, the book arrived a few days later, and it arrived in the morning, and they looked at it, and they went, it's quite nice. And that afternoon, clients of ours came in from Switzerland, and I sold it to the client for £800. That was the key turning point in my book selling. I was 21 years old. That's when I figured, this is a good game. I could buy a book for £500 and sell it for £800. That's nice. And from that moment on, I started to do what we call in England country auction sales. And I started going to all these country auction sales, and I'd probably do 6 or 7 a week, sometimes 2 or 3 a day. And I'd go and drive to all different parts of England and go to these country sales and look at the books and then report back to my grandfather and uncle and say, I've seen this, and how much shall I bid for it? And they would tell me, well, this is what you bid. And I'd go back and I'd go to the sales. And I did this for about 5 or 6 years. Solid. Very little time in the shop, really out on the road buying rare books. And then Jack died in '79, and so I spent time in the shop from there on. Sorry, in 73. Jack died in 73. And so I had to spend more time in the shop and gradually changed things around and finally started to come to America in 1977. That was a big change for me because then I saw people working in offices, which I hadn't seen before in England. Everybody worked from a bookshop. So I saw people working from offices and I thought, that's an idea. Why don't we have a rare book business working from an office? It took me 5 years to put that into practice. And in 82, I moved out of Charing Cross Road and moved into an American-style office in Vere Street, corner of Oxford Street and Bond Street. And really then just continued to work in rare books and became very friendly with my old comrades, the Weinsteins. And eventually in 1993, because I was spending so much time in America, I came and moved to the States and worked with the Weinsteins for 12 years, just under 12 years. And in 2004, started up on my own again as David Brass Rare Books. And we live in Calabasas, we work from Calabasas, and here we are.
Tell us a little bit about your family.
My immediate family?
Your wife, children.
My wife, okay. My wife, Caroline, we've been married for 30 years next week. Wonderful, wonderful lady. And she also worked at Heritage for a while and has learnt the business really from scratch and really runs my business for me. She does all of the administration, but she really is learning about books, and she's wonderful with clients. My children, I have 3 children. Adrian, my oldest, who actually lives in London, and he's an investment banker. Yes, he works for Fidelity, and well, all I can tell you is he still has his job, so he must be doing the right thing. And the little ones, they're 24 and 26. They are here in California. Deborah is a frequent visitor to book fairs. She's here at the New York Book Fair, helping Aleph Bet. And Joshua is a senior financial analyst for Virgin Mobile. Neither of them are going to come into the book business. It's difficult times at the moment, and they forge their own careers. But Deborah certainly enjoys helping out.
Talk a little bit about your business vis-a-vis the internet. I mean, it's something that shot onto the scene, and all of us have had to deal with it in one form or another. Do you see it as a friend or a foe, or neither, or both?
Unfortunately, I see it as a foe. I don't think the internet is friendly to our business at all, and I'll explain why. I'm old school, and I'm old now, nearly 62. And in the old days, people would come to us and they would say, I'm looking for such and such. And I'd know of a copy because I'd been traveling all over the country. This is before I started going to the States. And I'd know of a copy in Glasgow, and I might know of one in Manchester. But I would know of it. Nobody else would know of it. The client wouldn't. And so I'd make my phone call, and I'd have the copy sent down, and then I'd call the person, and they would be thrilled to see it. And they would buy it, and they'd be really very, very happy. Now, they can go to a computer, they can push a button, and they can find not only those 2 copies, but all the copies all over the world. And because of the internet, it doesn't matter whether it's in New Zealand, or California, or in Russia. They translate the currency into a universal currency, and rare books, in fact, they've become not so rare. It's decimated. The internet has decimated the middle ground and the lower range. What we have to do now is to have what's either very unusual or what is in superlative condition. And the problem with the internet is you can't really show it off. You can take as many. We show 7 photographs of each item, but even so, people, when they first look on the internet and they look at lists and there are all these different search engines, they just first of all look at the price, and it's very, very difficult. There are also a lot of people on these sites who don't catalogue the books properly, who don't describe the books properly, and in fact aren't even members of the associations, and yet they're still on the internet. And so it's a major, major problem. I don't find the internet to be books friendly to our business. Now, we have another business as well. We have another business called Fretted Americana, which deals in vintage guitars, and the exact opposite applies.
Really?
The internet is really super friendly. It's a great vehicle, great tool, and I can do all sorts of things. And we use the internet to promote ourselves. We have our own channel on YouTube. We show our guitars being played. We have a lot more interaction with our clients. It's much, much easier. But I fear that as far as the book trade, the rare book trade is concerned, not friendly. And this is what's caused, as far as I'm concerned, the closure of so many bookshops all over the world. There used to be bookshops in every town centre, everywhere. But now you don't need to go. People don't need to go browsing anymore. They browse on the internet. The old term of browsing. And I find at book fairs, people come and they go, "Oh yeah, I've seen that one on the yes, you've got that." Everybody knows this. The thrill of the chase has gone.
And they have their Blackberries and they
Alas, the thrill of the chase. And another thing is that as an old-timer bookseller, I'll go around, I'll look in book fairs and I'll see little books that I've not seen before. And I'll look them up on the internet, and I'll look them up on the internet and I'll see, well, there's 8 copies there, so I don't buy it. Whereas I would have bought it had it not been for the internet.
I have the same problem,
I would have bought it, but I don't. So everybody's suffering.
Yeah, it's quite a problem, and I don't know how it's ever going to get solved. Well, let's just move on.
Too much information.
The other part about the internet, people have said you get an instant education by reading the descriptions of the major dealers. I catalogue my books, and I have a cataloguer. And we research and research and research, and I hate the fact that people are plagiarizing our descriptions, and they are. They're just taking them straight off. People are taking our descriptions and putting books on eBay with our descriptions on them. And not giving you any credit for the description.
Not at all. I think it's really bad. And also, the other thing is that the number of people that we get who see our books advertised on the internet, and that they will contact us and say, I've got the same book. How much will you pay me for it? And of course, it's not the same book at all.
That's right.
It's not a help to us at all.
Were you computer literate at some point in your career, or did you have to start like most of us did from scratch?
I started from scratch. I didn't know how to use I could type, but I had no idea. I actually went to Pitman's, and I've forgotten all the shorthand. I was the only guy in the class. My great uncle Sam sent me to Pitman's shorthand and typing school when I was in my early 20s, and that was very helpful. So I did learn how to type. Shorthand I forgot, but as far as a computer, I started using a computer in the late 80s. So it's 20 years now.
Like most of us, we had to.
We had to.
It just had to happen. David, what do you see as some of the great challenges to the book trade as we look forward? Other than the internet.
I think that the middle ground booksellers are going to have a harder. It's just going to be increasingly hard for them. The biggest challenge for me is the fact that I don't see new clients coming in. I don't see the younger generation coming into this. We did for a few years, but they all seem to be these .com people. And a lot of investment bankers and a lot of the computer people were coming into it. And of course now they've been very badly hit by what's going on at the moment. And so they're out. But I don't see the literate. I don't see literate people coming into this. And I think that I would blame that on the standard of education now. It's quite different in schools. It's quite shocking that a lot of the young generation, they don't know the standard authors. They've heard of William Shakespeare, fine, but they don't know George Eliot and Anthony Trollope, and some of them don't even know Charles Dickens. And it's very, very frightening, because when I was at school, every single kid knew. Those are the novels we grew up with. Everybody knew. And, so when all through my career in the book selling, in rare book selling, people have come to me and they've said, I want to start collecting rare books. I was at so-and-so's house the other night and he's got this collection of books and he suggested that I come and see you. I'd like to start collecting rare books. So my first question to them would be, fine, what do you like? Well, I don't know what I like. Well, okay, what do you remember reading when you were a kid? Because you've got to get some sort of interest and start it from there.
Some passion.
And they'd say, well, okay. And I'd say to them, do you remember Charles Dickens? Oh, yes. I said, well, have you ever seen a first edition of A Christmas Carol? No, I've never seen one. And here it is. And they would go, great. And that could lead on to different illustrated books, different editions, and all sorts of things. And it just doesn't happen anymore. It just doesn't happen.
Do you think it's partly the booksellers' fault for not trying to encourage people?
No, I don't think it's the booksellers' fault. I think the booksellers have done everything that we possibly can, that they possibly could. I was president of the Antiquarian Booksellers Association in Great Britain, and at that time, this was 1990 to 92, I was very involved with trying to promote the rare book business, to have a fair in conjunction with an antique fair at the Royal Albert Hall. And I just couldn't not get it off the ground. There's just not enough interest. Even then, there wasn't enough, just not enough interest to make it commercially viable.
That's surprising. When we look at ourselves as booksellers, we see a great many of us are over 60. And one wonders, will there be enough young people coming into the trade for there to be an ABAA, an ILAB, an ABA, or whatever in the years to come? Do you see a continuance of booksellers coming in, or do you feel like I do, that generationally you seem to be losing it?
It worries me. I am one of the great supporters of ILAB. Look, I was president of the ABA. I'm involved with the ABAA. I've run the ABAA Southern California Fair. I've been chapter president of the Southern California chapter, and I'm in fact involved in the next LA Book Fair.
At the same venue?
At the same venue. And I work tirelessly. I enjoy working because I want to give back to this business what it's given to me. But I must say, I do worry especially about the ILAB, about the congresses and about the book fair that's allied to the congress. I'm a great supporter. I've attended every congress since 1984, and I see the numbers dwindling down and down and down. And I say to people, please come to the congress. Everybody wants to do the book fair, or they used to. It's changing now. It's changing. But everybody wanted to do the fair, and they didn't want to be bothered with the congress. And I'd say to them, why? And they said, well, we haven't got the time. And I'd say, please, just give up. We're only asking you to give out 3 or 4 days out of every 2 years to socialise and meet with all your fellow booksellers from all over the world. This is the opportunity to make great relationships with these people. This is what I've done. It's helped me tremendously. But I see the numbers dwindling. terribly. I see very little interest, and I think it's awfully sad. My grandfather was the president of the ABAA in 1960, 30 years before me. And I remember when I was a kid going to some of the functions that they'd have at the Dorchester or some of the great hotels. They were packed solid. They'd have 400 or 500 people there.
Well, I think there are a couple of reasons, David. One is the internet has brought everybody closer together without having to physically be closer together. I think that the expense of the congresses has gone up quite significantly. Since I went, my first one was in the early 60s, and they were wonderful and great social events, but they have become so expensive. I feel that they should be every 4 years instead of every 2 years. And maybe, just maybe, that will start to bring people back.
It's possible. That's a possible idea. And certainly, as far as book fairs are concerned, I think there are too many book fairs.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, that needs to be cut back. I mean, 6 weeks ago we were in California, and in 6 weeks' time we're going to be in London.
Well,
it's too much.
It is, but nobody is willing to say no. Everybody feels as though they've carved out their territory, and be damned, this is what they're going to do. And I don't know what we can do to stop it, but certainly I've been to my share of ILAB fairs, and I've learned a lot and met some wonderful, wonderful friends. And I see that, as you do, dwindling considerably. And I just don't know how to stop it either. In any case, let's move on a little bit. We've got some great challenges, and we've got an ABAA and an ILAB that we want to keep going. I know over your career, you've probably met a lot of great booksellers who you've learned something from or have been your mentors. Could you reminisce a little and talk a little bit about some of the great dealers from your side of the pond and from this side of the pond?
Well, I was very fortunate to have entered the book trade in the 60s and to have seen some of the great, great people on both sides of the Atlantic. First of all, when I worked at Quaritch, as I mentioned before, I worked under John Watson, but of course we had, there was Mr. Dring, and he was a real character, and wonderful people there. And of course next door was Raymond Sawyer. They were next door to Quaritch. Bill Fletcher was a mentor of mine. Wonderful, wonderful, great, wonderful bookseller. I remember going into him one day as a kid and looking at a book and thinking to myself, oh, I wonder, that looks okay. And I said to him, Mr. Fletcher, what's the best price for this? And he looked at the book. It was priced, I think, at £600. He said £700. And I said, but Mr. Fletcher, it's only priced £600. He said, well, you asked me what the best price was. £700 is the best price for me. Yeah, right. And I used to meet all these people. My grandfather and uncle were very well known in the business, and so I was sort of greeted by all the other people in the trade. And I remember Charlie Traylon and Frank Hammond, all these wonderful people. And they didn't, in those days, didn't have computers. It was all up in the head. Right. Everything was in the head. They didn't have to check things. You know, they go to an auction, and they didn't even carry book auction records with them. Nothing. It was all up in the head. It was all fantastic. They had such amazing knowledge. They were rogues, I must admit, and a lot of nonsense and skullduggery went on, but we all had great fun. I remember Bert Marley of Dawson's, and I remember from Dudley Massey from Pickering and Chatto, and then all the other booksellers from London, you know, great people, Tommy Thorpe, wonderful people. And then I remember all the provincial booksellers too. But then when I started coming, and of course I met all the Americans, because the Americans and the French and the Dutch and the Swedish and the ones from Holland, they would all come over. They were all great friends of my grandfather and uncle. They would all come over. But then when I started to come to the States in 77, I'd go and see them, and they were so good to me. When I first went to New York, I remember Jack Bartfield, going to see Jack Bartfield, and, you know, I was in there for 5 minutes. He said, come on, let's take you out for lunch.
Right.
Out for lunch. And what are you doing for dinner tonight? I said, well, I don't know. You're having dinner with me. me, and that's it. And the same thing would happen when I go and see Warren Howell and Barney Rosenthal, and whichever city I went to, all these people, they were so great to me and so fantastic. And Harry Levinson, you know, I mean, I met all these people, I revered them, I listened, I acted as a sponge and just took in from these people. They were great booksellers, and unfortunately we'll never see the likes of them again.
No.
They were fantastic.
Yeah, that's an era that will never be replaced.
Unfortunately not. I aspire to be a fraction of what they were.
Yeah. Tell me what you think of some of the... there obviously are some booksellers in this era that are going to be great or are already great. Are there any particular ones that you fancy as being the icons of the trade as we look at it today?
There's some young ones that I really admire coming up there. There are a couple, there are some from England in particular. I think Bernard Shapiro, I admire Bernard, I love him dearly.
He's a hard worker.
And I think he works so hard, and I think he's achieved an amazing amount. And, you know, I just hope that everything goes well for him throughout these bad times. But when the bad times are over, provided he gets through this, he's going to be the great.
Yeah.
And I think Pom Harrington, the same thing applies to him. I think he's great. I think that there's another young man called Benjamin Spademan, who I'm very friendly with, and I think he's a tremendous... He has a great eye. My Uncle Sam had a great eye for rare books, and I pride myself in having a great eye. I try.
It's something you're born with.
Yeah, and Benjamin Spademan has this.
Yeah.
He's the eye. There are many really good booksellers around. You know, I mean, I have to say that he's not in the book business anymore, but my old friend from the past, Louis Weinstein, I always looked up to him, and I thought that Louis Weinstein, I always thought that he was one of the greatest booksellers of our generation. I always felt that Lou knew the top 10 books of any subject.
Absolutely.
Right, and that's something quite great. He knew the top 10 books of any subject backwards.
He was a brilliant guy.
He was totally brilliant, but he treated it as a business. I'm not sure whether he really loved the books.
I don't think so.
Okay, that's the difference, because he's out of it now and he's retired, and good luck to him. But boy, did he know that stuff.
Well, it's something that we all should aspire to have that kind of knowledge.
He was a great... I'd love to have that gift. Yeah. But I try. I love what I do.
You have your own gift, David, in your own way.
I really love what I do, and I couldn't retire.
No. Well, none of us want to retire. But thanks very much for spending 30 minutes with us, and we enjoyed it, and thank you for sharing your views.
Thank you.